I was pretty lost for a long, long time. And it's like walking through a veil into a whole different life. I mean, it's just all these things that I really didn't think were available to me personally became available to have meaningful relationships,
Yeah.
to be a useful member of society,
Yeah.
to actually go out and work and make money and not cheat anybody and not, try to. I always looked for the easier, softer way in everything. I'm just naturally lazy. And I would work really hard to find shortcuts. Doesn't make any sense. Would have been easier just to go straight to the path, and I would just spend a lot of time trying to figure out a shortcut. And it's like, what is with me, And so you start recognizing some of these character defects. You start recognizing that, and I think it goes back to taking responsibility for who you are. I really do. I think it's, I have the ability to see my part in things. Maybe not all the time. I mean, there's still a little piece of me that likes to live in denial that I'm perfect and I do everything just great and blah, 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 and everybody should see that. I think we all have a little bit of that. I don't know, maybe that's ego. I'm not sure what that is, but, I'm slowly but surely recognizing this stuff. And I think that's the beauty of it. I've always said that you can't change your behavior until you recognize your behavior. If you live you live in denial all the time, you can't change your behavior. If you don't take responsibility for who you are, if you just want to be a victim of life, you're not going to change your behavior. You're stuck in that ugly, ugly mode. So I think it's way important that, you start and honesty is the key.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Push Each Other to the Top podcast. I'm Jonathan, and this is Brent again. We are excited to bring another episode to you folks out there in podcast land. As you might recall, Brent is in Thailand, and it just so happens this time works out, like all the way across the world, 14 hours ahead. So you're already in tomorrow. And
Sunday morning. Yep.
Yeah. We'll have to check the scores, see who actually won. Play some bets maybe, but but yeah, no, this is cool. Last time I think we went over some experiences you had at Diamond Head and out there in Hawaii. And yeah, where do you want to take us today?
Well, I just think it's important that, we talk about some of the successes and some of the things that started to pay off for me. You put in all this work, and trust me when I tell you this, it's a lot of work. And you work your butt off every day to make sure that you don't get into a place where you need to have a substance. So it's something that, especially in the beginning, that you really, really have to focus on. But, the things that started happening for me was, like slowly but surely, I started having a bunch of success. Like I've told you before, ever since I came into the program and went into treatment, I've never failed again. I've never failed. And I failed over and over and over and over and over again before I got to this place in my life. So, this is a huge transformation for me, starting to live a life that I didn't even know was possible. I mean, I didn't know, I didn't know how it was. Like I told you that one time about, when I got Serenity, Horace, like, wow, that's called Serenity, and hung up the phone, I started finding some peace and happiness. And, the one thing that really intrigued me was I started to like people. I cared about people. I wanted to help people. I just had this desire, and I never had it my whole life. I didn't really give a flip about you or anybody. All I cared about was myself, and slowly but surely I'm getting out of myself, and I'm thinking about other people and what I can do to bring, good stuff into their lives.
Mm.
I get a lot of joy out of watching somebody brand new come into the program, this young family, got a couple of kids and a wife, and, they've just gone through the mill, they've gone through so much tragedy, so much hurt and shame and, guilt and on and on and on. And I just get the biggest kick out of watching that family come back together and watching those kids, because the kids are going to be the ones that benefit the most out of this. Is absolutely to grow up in a house that doesn't have addiction, and it's based on spirituality and learning how to have success every day and be able to accomplish something every day. It's amazing when you put out a little effort and you keep putting out that effort day in and day out, how much, after a bit of time, you really have some success. And that's what I found that happened for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I always had this voice in my head that said, "Oh yeah, that'd be great for somebody, but it's not ever going to happen, for me." And that's not true. That brain, that voice in my head's always lying to me. It's always trying to get me to go down some negative path. But I've shared some of the stuff with you when I was using. I lived in a fog. Everything was just gray. I never saw the sun. I never saw flowers. I never smelled, the spring air. I had so much new stuff to really engage in. The things that, I love to hike. I love to go to the mountains and hike. I just love being in the mountains. I've always been that way. My dad used to take me up in the mountains, and it's one of the only places on the planet that I felt like I belonged and fit in. And when you get me in the mountains, and it's like I'm with nature. I am there. I am supposed to be there. I fit in. I belong, and it's just this incredible feeling. And so I'm starting to feel a lot of these things that, I didn't go to that treatment center to go learn how to feel comfortable in the mountains. I mean, I didn't go there to start to learn and care about other people.
Mm-hmm.
And all these things start to happen that I just didn't expect. I had no idea, like my relationships with people, I think I don't know how many years I would have a conversation with somebody, and I never, I was either listening and figuring out what I was going to say when I got the opportunity to talk, or I was just not even hearing what they had to say and just wanted to tell them what they needed to hear. I mean, and I went through stuff like that over and over and over again. And now I'm starting to wake up and realize that, people have opinions, that you can actually learn. If you shut up and listen, you can actually learn from people, I never listened to anybody, it was all just about me. Everything was about me.
Right.
It's just like that little Al-Anon lady that stuck her finger in my chest, you think you're so important that we're in here talking about you, and that's how I was. I just thought the whole world revolved around Brent.
Yeah.
And, slowly.
When did that switch for you? When do you remember a moment when that kind of dawned on you that you were starting to care about another individual? Like, when did that happen?
Well, I think, it just, like I say, you start making these little accomplishments every day and they start to build. And yeah, I think all of the senses that you have in your body, all your emotions, all your feelings, everything has been, numbed. I didn't have any of those things. So slowly and surely they start firing and they're coming back to life. And I'm starting to smell the roses and see the sunset and see the beauty in other people and caring about a family with their kids and just looking at their kids. I was always growling at kids, like, get out of here, you're supposed to be seen, not heard, and that whole kind of thing, and now I'm finding myself really liking other people
Yeah.
and liking to be around other people and actually being able to listen to them and take some direction. I mean, I was pretty lost for a long, long time. And it's like walking through a veil into a whole different life. I mean, it's just all these things that I really didn't think were available to me personally became available to have meaningful relationships,
Yeah.
to be a useful member of society,
Yeah.
to actually go out and work and make money and not cheat anybody and not, try to. I always look for the easier, softer way in everything. I'm just naturally lazy. And I would work really hard to find shortcuts. Doesn't make any sense. Would have been easier just to go straight to the path. And I would just spend a lot of time trying to figure out a shortcut. And it's like, what is with me, And so you start recognizing some of these character defects. You start recognizing that, and I think it goes back to taking responsibility for who you are. I really do. I think it's, I have the ability to see my part in things. Maybe not all the time. I mean, there's still a little piece of me that likes to live in denial that I'm perfect and I do everything just great and blah, 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 and everybody should see that. I think we all have a little bit of that. I don't know, maybe that's ego. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm slowly but surely recognizing this stuff. And I think that's the beauty of it. I've always said that you can't change your behavior until you recognize your behavior. If you live in you live in denial all the time, you can't change your behavior. If you don't take responsibility for who you are, if you just want to be a victim of life, you're not going to change your behavior. You're stuck in that ugly, ugly mode. So I think it's way important that, you start to, and honesty is the key. Take an honest inventory of yourself, honest inventory, I got nothing to hide. I got nothing to being in denial and not facing life on life's terms is not going to take me anywhere. And I want to be today. I want to be better than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the attitude I've had from the beginning. And I hate to say this, but this is the best me I've ever been today. People will say, "Oh God, I'm sure glad I didn't meet you like 10 years ago."
But yeah, you probably are glad that you didn't meet me 10 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah. So, I mean, those are taking responsibility, taking an honest inventory of your life and your attitudes and making sure that those are all, that sounds like some of those tools that you talked about in your tool belt there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just amazing that you just start, a lot of people will talk about an onion, peeling the layers of the onion away and to find out who you are. And some of the things that you find you don't necessarily like. I didn't like being selfish and self-centered, but if I recognize that I'm selfish and self-centered, then if I don't like being that way, then what am I willing to do to get out of it? And it gets a lot deeper than that. We all have character defects. We all have issues and problems and things. And I'm here to encourage anybody out there. Therapy has always been a big part of my recovery. Always been. I've gone to a professional therapist for, I don't know, years and years and years and years. And I don't discourage that at the least. I think that the more you talk and the more you get a different, I think it's important to get a different perspective on what's going on in your life, I shy away from the ones that's, kind of, well, tell me what your life was when you were 2 years old. It's like, oh, come on, give me a break. Let's not blame everything on mom and dad. Let's look at who I am today. And I guess I shouldn't knock that because that probably works for people. Personally, I kind of like to get past all that. And yeah, I think a lot of things come from your past. I used to watch this when so funny when before I was sober. Uh, Elaine, she used to get on TV on one of the PBS or whatever it was, and there was a series on there, and it was from what is his name? John Bradshaw, I believe was his name,
Okay.
and he's a psychiatrist. He's also in recovery.
Oh,
And he had a series, and he talked about recovery and recovering in the family and how it affects everybody in the family. And it was super interesting. I'd like to go back and see that. I'd like to look up some of that old stuff because it was a video and it was really, really cool. He had a mobile up, and he talked about, all the family members, and when one did something and moved, it changes everybody. And he just would show how if one person in the family would start getting healthy, what a dramatic change it would make in the family. Like they had to find their own new position in the family, you
mhm.
know. And I really, it's crazy that I even listened to that stuff before I was sober. But here I am, 30 some years later, and I still remember that stuff.
Cool.
It's like it was really impactful,
Yeah.
So if you make changes in your family, if you start to recover, I think it changes the whole dynamic of things. I've often said that, when a guy comes into the program and he starts to get well, and his wife is with him, if they both work the program, their own individual program, they grow together.
Right.
If not, they grow apart, and I just think that it's important that when you do get into recovery, that you're able to grow together. And that's what Elaine and I did. We grew together. We were able to create a new life for us both, uh, and based it around, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon. And it just really, really, really worked. It just took us to a whole new level of honesty. You know, I I've always been cash register honest. I've never been one to. My brother got caught for stealing a bicycle when I was a little kid, and I remember the police came to the house. Oh my gosh, scared the crap. The best thing that ever happened to me. I mean, he got caught, and of course, my parents pushed the police into really making a big deal out of it. So we did learn a lesson, but I don't know if that had to do with it or whatever. But I've just never been a thief.
Mhm.
But I've been dishonest in a lot of other ways. And so the honesty part, the cash register honesty part was easy for me. Uh, but I realized today that, if I go to the store and I give somebody a $10 bill and they give me change for a 20, and I walk outside and I look down and, whoa, man, I just made $10, blah, blah, blah. I walk right back in and give it to them.
Mhm.
I don't want that hanging over my head.
Mhm.
That $10 would drive me crazy. And then I take that $10 and I add it on to another $10 a week later. And pretty soon I'm right back to just being dishonest. I'm right back to building up that, when I did my 4-step, I just cleaned the slate. I laid everything out there, you
Mhm.
know, I just gave it all away. Here it is. I cleaned the slate. Well, I don't want to go back to that.
Right.
So I got to make sure that, the things that I do in my life, uh, they're important to me and my integrity. I wanted to have self-esteem, you know, I hear people all the time, well, I got low self-esteem. Well, what do you do all day? Well, I sit on the couch and play video games. Well, duh, I mean, like if you get up and make your bed, you
Right.
feel better about yourself. If you go for a walk, you feel better about yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you got to take responsibility for having low self-esteem. It's not anybody else's problem.
Right.
Yeah, and there's a lot, you can go to the doctor and whine on their shoulder and they'll give you all kinds of crazy drugs and they might work for a little while. For me, I never I just I don't know. I hate to say this because I know there's a lot of stuff out there that helps people, but I'm just a believer in, man, just just do what you got to do. And if it doesn't work, then, go to the next option. And for me, that, taking drugs or medications are probably my last option, for me personally, but
Yeah.
that's not for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
I don't, first thing, I don't, I'm scared to death of taking drugs. I mean, I absolutely petrified because I don't want to wake that demon up again. I don't know what, some doctor gives me. And trust me when I tell you this, when I go to the doctor and I get a new doctor, the first thing I tell him is, hey, dude, I'm an alcoholic.
Mhm.
I'm a drug addict. I cannot take pain pills. I cannot take a lot of these different things. So I want you to put it in big, bold letters in your notes that, don't give Brent crap because I'll be bugging you for prescriptions and, wanting to use more and more and more. And I just said, I don't want to open up that door again. I want to leave that door closed. So, and it's again just taking responsibility for who you are and what works for you. So, here I am going skipping through my recovery, and I'm starting to come to all these realizations, and
Yeah.
I'm starting to like me. I mean, I'm
That's
I'm
a
really
good place.
thinking I'm not that bad of a guy. I'm not a real great guy, but I'm becoming. I see some potential there, and for the first time in my life, uh, I can brush my teeth and look in the mirror. And I'm really happy with the accomplishments that I'm making. And the financial part, it was tough for a lot of years, for a lot of years, for Elaine and I. And you know, but the stuff that's really, really important to me, the stuff that really has a lot of value, is to have that self-esteem, to have integrity. I never thought I wanted integrity. What the hell's integrity? But today it is so important to me.
Yeah.
When I tell somebody I'm going to do something, I try to show up. I mean, I give it my all. I'm not gonna make a commitment to you without following through with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, something might happen. Yeah, I might have to cancel it. Who knows? But I try to follow through with my word. If I give somebody my word, I think that's really important. And here these things are happening to me, and I'm listening to myself right now, and I'm thinking, where the hell does this all come
Who
from?
is that guy? Yeah.
Yeah, who is that guy?
And surely other people are starting to notice this, right? Like that's got to become apparent as you're changing everything about yourself. That's got to start showing up for other people too.
Other people see it sooner than you do. You don't, I didn't recognize a lot of this stuff for quite some time, but people that you interact with and have known you for a long time, they really start to see a change in you, and they compliment you and tell you, that they really enjoy the person that you become, and you build trust back up. I'll never forget the day that my mother took the house key away from me.
Mm.
She took the house key away from me because she didn't trust me anymore.
Wow.
And she took it away from me when I was using and abusing. And when the day that she gave that key back to me, wow, that took a lot of, I mean, I think when you lose trust in people, when you take that away from them, it takes a tremendous amount of time to repair that. I mean, you've got to really you've got to really do a good job to get back to people being able to trust you again. So patience is a big part of it. I think that, letting people just go through their stuff, I mean, let them, I can't force somebody to trust me. I just got to keep doing what I'm doing. And, there comes a time in a day where they trust me. And that feels good, man. That just feels so good. And here again, it just blows me away. It's like, it's not why I came here, is to build trust in people. All these accomplishments and things that are going on in my life, uh, you just don't feel like you deserve them. You just feel like, yeah, you work hard, but I don't know. It's just a whole new world. It's a part of life that I never really got to experience.
Yeah.
You know, I lived a life that constantly beat my head against the wall. I was swimming upstream all the time. I went against the grain all the time, and here I am now just going with the flow, and it's working. All these things that people have been telling me my whole life are coming true. They're happening for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm I'm growing up. I'm actually becoming a man instead of this lost little boy.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that feeling. How can I be a good father when I'm just a lost little boy?
Mm-hmm.
How can I be a good partner when my partner needs to take care of me like a little kid? Elaine raised me for a long time. She had to treat me like a little kid because I was a little sick boy.
Mm-hmm.
And she picked up the pieces, and she was an angel, dude. I mean, she put up with stuff. I mean, she was an angel, because I wouldn't have put up with me. There's no way. I mean, it took a lot for her to get to the place where she said enough is enough, and thank God she did, because that's that relationship was so important to me that I was willing to change to get that back. So there's just so many great things that happen along the way, and it's not all about, you hear people, one thing they tell you to do when you come into the program, especially in the beginning, is you write a list of things that you want. Okay.
Oh.
You write a list of all the things you want to accomplish in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And my camera's doing something really weird, and I don't know why. But anyway, you write a list of things that you want, and you just stash it away for a year, and then you open that up and read that list a year later. Oh my gosh, what a shock! I want a new car. I want a job that pays $100,000 a year. I want blah blah blah, all this material stuff, and then you realize what you've been given in that period of time, and it just blows you away. You got so much. You cut yourself so short. Things that you thought were so important at the time, just were elementary, really. I mean, they were just so simple. And you open that up, and that's a good exercise, when you first start out, to be able to, quantify what accomplishments that you really make, because I think it's important that you get to see those accomplishments and feel that, and get to see what other people around you get to see. So
sure.
there's a lot of diamonds in the rough. Let me tell you, there's just a lot of diamonds in the rough. You start, why would I ever think that self-esteem would be so important? I didn't ever think that integrity would be so important to me. It's some of my best assets. I figured out a way that if, and I've talked about it. I've always had a little bit of seasonal depression. In January in Utah was gray and glum and cold, and the sun went down at 4:30 in the afternoon, and it was just dark and ugly, and to and I would just slip into that depression. And I found, if I went to the gym and I got physical, somehow went for a walk or whatever, it helped. It didn't cure it, but I
Mhm.
felt better.
Mhm.
I get a better night's sleep. And that's how everything is in recovery. If I've got a problem, I don't look outside of myself for the answer. It's like, sure, I bounce it off other people, and what's amazing is people in the program have all had depression. I've met very few that hasn't battled depression, or, they've gone through divorces, they've gone through losing a job, they've gone through, and when you talk to them, they give you little jewels of help how to get through it. So you look at yourself and say, okay, what do I need to, because Joe can give you a great suggestion. I mean, Joe, he just went through the same thing you're going through, and he'll say, Brent, this is what I did. Well, guess what? Listening to Joe doesn't do it. You actually got to take some action.
Yeah.
You've got to actually put what Joe says into action.
Mhm.
And so I think that's I've always been lazy. I've always looked for an easier, softer way. Well, if Joe said to do this, this, and this, well, maybe I can just do it with part of that. No, no, no.
Do half of what he said, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, do half of what he says and expect to have great results. It's like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, it, it never ceases to amaze me. The accomplishments that we make uh, as things start to settle down in our lives. There's certain parts of my sobriety I remember very, very well. When I got to 6 months, I'll never forget this. 6 months, I went to a meeting. I picked up a chip, and I didn't feel right. I didn't feel good. I just didn't. For the first time since I got into the program, something was way off.
Hmm.
Something inside of me was not clicking. And so I had a hard time sleeping the first year I was sober. And, reading was never a thing that I liked to do, but I would I would go home and everybody'd be in bed, and I would open up the big book and I would start reading the big book.
Hmm.
And I'll never forget that night. I came home after this meeting, and after everybody had gone to bed, I opened up the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and in the back of the big book is a bunch of personal stories. The first 164 pages is the text of the book, and then the rest of it is just personal stories, how people got to recovery
Hmm.
or what they did while they're in recovery, different stories. And so I opened up one of the stories and I started reading it. And I'll tell you what, it was just so right on.
Hmm.
It talked about this guy standing at the turning point. Here I was with 6 months sobriety, and I felt like I had a decision to make once again.
Hmm.
Did I want to continue on this path? Or did I just want to throw in the towel? Because throwing in the towel to me sounded like a lot easier way to go.
Hmm.
Throw in the towel and go back. Who wants to work on themselves every single day? It's like, come on, I need a vacation or something. And it talks about this guy, this story talks about this guy standing at the turning point, and he made a decision, that he was going to continue on this path. And I don't remember exactly what it was. I do remember I got so excited about that. I ran in and woke up Elaine, and I read this to her. She's looking at me like, go to bed. Why are you waking me up? She did not have the enthusiasm I did. I'll tell you that.
Wow, that's funny. So you
So
wait
it's
on telling her.
so when I see people get a 6 months chip,
Mhm.
I know where they're at.
Mhm.
They're in a very vulnerable spot. And they probably, and I'm, I've done a lot of research when it comes to this, and I'm right about 90% of the time. These
Mhm.
people are struggling. And the problem is when people are struggling with that, they don't want to tell you.
Right.
They don't want to tell you because they think you're going to judge them and think, oh, well, you're not working the program right. You didn't do your steps right. You don't go to enough meetings. You didn't blah, 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 blah. And it's like, so if you walk up to them and say, no, seriously, how are you doing? Are you okay? I know when I got 6 months, it was a rough time for me. And 99% of the time they'll say, it's funny you said that,
Mhm.
because I feel like something's missing.
Mhm.
And so, I think that's a very vital part of the recovery process, that 6 months period. Uh, Again, I got to 1 year, and that was kind of uh, it was a high because I got 1 year chip. The chips they used to give me, when I first got in, were they do it different now. I sound like an old man. Back in the day,
Yeah, they gave you stone chips and now they have plastic chips.
no, they were plastic. You got
Were plastic.
plastic chips
Mhm.
up to 1 year, and when you got 1 year, they gave you a brass chip.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So it was like way cool. You
Yeah.
got that brass chip. And so, I had that brass chip, and it was like I was hired a kite for a day or two, and then there's just this big letdown, like, okay, now what? Well, stay sober one more day. You got 1 year and 1 day. You got,
Yeah.
1 year and 2 days. You just gotta don't get too high and don't get too low. And then
Right.
I think there was a lot of work, a lot of ups and downs between 1 and 5 years for me. I think there was a lot of struggles. It was 4 years when I went to Hawaii and had that spiritual experience there. And,
Mhm.
I think there was a lot of hard things to face. And then I'm, realizing that I am accomplishing a lot of things and things are good. Uh, I think between like 5 and 10 years, was, it was kind of like just being on a plateau. I
Mhm.
was going to a lot of meetings. I had the opportunity to travel, and I went to every 5 years. Alcoholics Anonymous has an international conference of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it was in 1990 was the first one I went to, and it was in Seattle, Washington.
Mhm.
And Elaine and I, we rented a motorhome. We took the kids. We went up to this conference, and uh, it was it was amazing. 65,000 people in a stadium.
Wow.
And the feeling, the energy, you would see a line, anytime I go anywhere, you go to Disneyland or whatever, you see a line, I'm not going in that. This was just the opposite. You go into a line and everybody's got a badge saying where they're from and what they're doing. Where if they're a member of Alcoholics Anonymous or they're with Al-Anon, whatever, they got this badge and they're from all over the world. So you go up to them and you start talking and you just have these little meetings and everybody's your closest friend. And it's just so much fun. I mean, we literally took over the city of Seattle. I mean, it was just, you saw these badges everywhere you went. And, I'll never forget, they have Thursday night, it's called a flag ceremony where they bring all the flags in from all the different countries of the world where Alcoholics Anonymous is. And then the next night they have, let's see, Friday night, I think they had a speaker, and I can't remember. Anyway, Saturday night's the big meeting. Okay. The big, big, big speaker meeting. They have a special speaker that comes in, and she shared her story with us. And she was actually in sales. And I still to this day really I can remember a lot of stuff that she said. But at the end of the meeting, the end of the meeting, I was sitting there in the stadium, and right behind me were these two great big bikers. I mean, they were in leathers. these aren't just your weekend warriors. These are, dedicated, real life bikers. And they look like the meanest, and they were huge. They were big. And after that meeting, I'll never forget this. I think the Serenity Prayer. 65,000 people saying the Serenity Prayer at the same time.
Wow.
And I glanced over my shoulder, and I'll never forget. This biker has big tears rolling down his face. And it was like, that just summed it all up. That's how touching that was. It was just so absolutely incredible. And I've been to every international conference since I got sober. I haven't missed one. Last time it was postponed because of COVID.
Right.
It was supposed to be in Detroit this year, and I'll miss this year. I won't go this year because I'm in Thailand, and it's July 4th weekend, and it's going to be up in Vancouver, British Columbia. So I won't. That'll be the first one I miss. And who knows? I might get a wild hair and get on a plane and go. Who knows? I haven't decided.
Oh, maybe I'll go with you. That sounds pretty dang cool.
Oh, way cool. Way cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's amazing.
got to travel and go see a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Where are we with it?
That's a huge accomplishment. I mean, and I'm guessing maybe your list, maybe I don't know if you recall, do you remember what you had on that list that you made when you were first in the program? Was it cars and money and
Yeah. It was
it
just
all-
lots of
Okay.
money, and it was all about it was just all about real selfish,
yeah.
just selfish stuff. Just it was so ridiculous I don't even remember it. It was just
Yeah.
crazy stuff.
Yeah. And if you had to make one now,
Oh, that's a good question. Wow.
what would be on your list after all these years?
Oh, so different today. So different, like you start you as you get older, you start to think about the mortality of your life. I feel like I just grew up yesterday. I mean, I feel like it took me so long to get to where I'm at today, and to think about, in a few years, I might not even be able to remember my name. It's kind of scary. So I think what I want today more than anything, and it's what we do. It's the relationships. To me, relationships are more important than anything. Being able to spend time with your loved ones and your family, and the people that have always been there for me. My old boss, Ken Hall, I mean, that guy, he's gone to bat for me. He's so much fun, and he doesn't enable me. He lets me have it. He hates confrontation, but I don't know why. He loves it with me. I mean, he'll push my buttons. He won't push anybody else's, but he likes pushing my buttons. And so because of that, I think we've had a really, really, really good relationship. So spending time with him and the whole Hall family. His son plays basketball for Virginia, Dallin Hall. And I've been watching him play basketball, since he was in high school. And so to watch him, he's a senior this year, watch him play and hanging out with the whole Hall family. I mean, I love, Peyton's one of my best friends. He's 25, 26 years old. And, here he is, one of my best friends, and him and his girlfriend. We just went to Hawaii together. And, just that whole family, spending time with them and having that relationship and things like that are what's really, truly important to me. Watching my grandkids and getting to know my grandkids. My God, I've got 22 grandkids. I've got, I don't even know their names. It's like I'm so bad, and I'm getting to know them, and some of them has been really important to me. I've got 10 or 11 great grandkids, let alone grandkids. And I've told them all, forget Christmas, if I call you on your birthday, it's like, wow, That's good.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I've just kind of threw in the towel when it comes to trying to remember everybody's birthday, and I
Yeah.
can't afford to do Christmas for everybody. So anyway, yeah, I think that list would be a way different today. I think that's a really, really good question. That'll give me some food for thought. I'll think about that today.
Yeah.
What's important to me? I think about that a lot. I've still got my health, so that's why I'm here in Thailand. I come here because I love the people. I love kind of how exotic it is, how different it is from where I come from. I just get a big smile on my face wandering around the neighborhood around here, watching how they do things and how they operate. They're just these people are so content. It's just everybody's smiling.
Hmm. Wow.
Everybody's happy. I can see a change. I've been coming here for 10 years, so I have been able to see a change in people, and they're becoming more Western. So I was talking to this old guy one day, and he could speak pretty good English, and he was telling me that McDonald's ruined all the women here. They're all getting fat.
Oh no. Oh no.
And I'm like, what? They're fat. They're little tiny things,
Right.
Look at them. They're all getting heavy, they're all getting fat. They got to quit eating that McDonald's and stuff. He was blanking McDonald's and the other, KFC and
Yeah.
Burger King and all of those are here. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I've
they
had too much of that too.
too much Western food. Yeah, yeah.
Me too. I need to go to Thailand and eat Thai food. Yeah.
So, we're about out of time, and I just want to take a few minutes just to once again talk about helping people and how vitally important. We now have a website, correct?
Yep.
Have a website, and I encourage people if you've got questions. I'm not a professional by any means. I think I have a doctorate degree in recovery because I've done it for so many years.
Sure.
So I've got a lot of wisdom, and I want to share that with people, and I think it's just so vitally important that if you're struggling, and I want to do maybe several episodes on the family and working with family, because that's kind of been my passion, is to be able to help family when families are out there struggling. They have a loved one. Their nature is to do exactly what they shouldn't be doing. And so it's really, really super helpful that if you've got a family member out there that's struggling, find some professional help. Find some people out there that really understand addiction, and get some guidance, because you can save yourself a lot of headaches and money. You just there. We just want to love them to death, and that's unfortunately what we do, is we love them to death. Enabling people is not good.
Mm-hmm.
People that are codependent, they're addicted to people.
Mm-hmm.
People with dependency issues, and being an alcoholic, I'm addicted to substances. So people have a hard time separating that. They don't understand their addiction. They say, well, if Johnny would just do this, this, and this, I'd be so much better. That's not true. They have an addiction that's just as powerful as addiction with drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to take responsibility for that. They want to save the world. They want to change they want to control everything and everybody. And that's not a good way to live. And so you can recover from that. And there's a way out of that, and a path that I just have a lot of passion for families. I just feel like there's not enough resources out there to help a lot of families. So if you get into a place where you're kind of lost and you've got a question, please write us, get in touch with us, get in touch with me. Jonathan will put information down and be able to get it back to me, because really that's why we're doing this. Is there's a couple of different motives. One is just to record some of my experiences for my family, and from my grandkids and all that. So someday they'll be able to tap into this. But there's also a part of me that the reason I'm doing this is to be able to tell people that there is a way out. There is life after drugs and alcohol, and I'll tell you what, my life is so fabulous today. I just never, ever, ever thought that this was available to me. And I know that and this is kind of a cliche, and you hear this all the time, but if this is available to me, it's available to everybody. I often say that my God doesn't love me more than he loves anybody else. My higher power gives each and every one of us the opportunity to change what we don't like about ourselves. The opportunity to face life, to grow up. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's not. It's a lot of work. But God, is it worth it? It's just worth it. And reaching out and asking for help is the first step, to start on this path. Is pick up the phone, send an email, do what you need to do. Take responsibility for where your life's at. And, I care. I care. I have a lot of compassion for people that are in recovery. I have a lot of compassion for families that are living. I've told you before, I've been trained in doing interventions. I've worked in treatment centers. I've counseled people. I've ran, aftercare programs and things like that. So I've got a lot of experience, and I really enjoy working with people one-on-one and, giving you some direction. But I also got to warn you, I'm old school. I give it to you just straight out. I don't pull any punches. And, a lot of people, they just don't like hearing what I have to say, and that's okay. But, I'm going to shoot straight from the hip, and it might seem a little harsh, and it might come across as mean, but, I wouldn't do the things I do if I thought for 1 second it would hurt you. I'm only going to tell you things that are going to help you. And if you don't like what I'm saying, then maybe you just haven't had enough to drink, or you haven't taken enough drugs, or you haven't got to that place where you're willing to hear what I have to say. Because I know for me, that's where I had to get. I had to drink every drop that I drank. I had to take every drug that I took to get to the place where I could open up my mind and listen to people that knew better than what I did. And trust me, Horace was not kind. Horace was a mean guy that let me have it right between the eyes, but it was exactly what I needed. Exactly. That guy did not, he cared about me so much, he was willing to just treat me like that. And I didn't even punch him. I mean, that's good.
You didn't even go after him.
I didn't even go after him.
The spirit of Horace lives on, I think.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So
no, that's a good thing. Well, cool. I think that's a good spot for us. Yeah. If anyone is looking for help and wants to reach out to Brent, go to our website, pusheachothertothetop.com. There's an email link there. You can click that and you can send us a message. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you if you're looking for any of that counsel and that guidance, any of that help that Brent has to offer. So yeah, I think we're good there. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, I know a lot of people in the recovery business. I've got friends that own treatment centers and aftercare programs and sober living. And yeah, I got a few resources. So
yeah, all the things to help. Well, that's awesome. Well, this has been great. Thanks for another great session. And we'll see you on the other side and in a new session. And have a great day.
Keep coming back.
Thanks for listening to Push Each Other to the Top. Brent's story is a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there's still a path forward and someone willing to walk it with us. If this episode meant something to you, share it. And if you're struggling right now, please know you're not alone.
Follow the show wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss the next story. And if you can, leave a quick review. It helps more people find these conversations. New episodes drop soon. We hope you'll come back. Continue listening for behind the scenes moment after we ended the episode.
Yeah, those big meetings sound amazing. Like, I can't imagine seeing those big burly bikers shedding tears.
You know, at that particular conference, they're so amazing. I think it's Thursday or maybe it's Friday night. They have bands playing, these huge bands. I mean, you got 65,000 people. And I remember the next one was in San Diego. And the night they had the music playing, they had three bands. One was like I don't know, it was back in 95. So what kind of music, the hip music back there for the young people.
Yeah.
Then and country western music, and then they had old rock and roll. Three different bands going at the same time in different locations, and they were packed.
Oh.
And you talk about party. Oh my gosh. It was just incredible. And you get when you register, you get this book, and it's got a lot of blank pages in it. And this kind of reminds me of your yearbook.
Yeah.
Well, everybody signs everybody's book from all over the world. I got a couple of laying around somewhere.
That's cool.
You meet people from everywhere. Just so much fun. What a party, of recovery. And that's when they make, announcements. This is put on by General Service Office in New York.
Okay.
They print all the literature, and they usually make announcements that they're going to make changes, or they're going to come out with a new piece of literature or something like that, and they have a monthly publication that they have called the Grapevine.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that comes out once a month, has just short stories in it and stuff like that. So
awesome.
They do a lot, but and then I've been to. We're going to have to talk about this because this was an amazing experience. I got to go to Bill and Lois's house. Bill Wilson, who started Alcoholics Anonymous, his house in Bedford Hills, New York.
Wow.
They lived on 8 acres, and that's where he wrote the 12 and 12, all the 12 traditions and the 12 steps and everything. He goes into detail. You might want to get a copy of that. That might help you understand the steps a little better. It's kind of his perspective on the steps and then the traditions as well. So and upstairs was a library, and that's where Lois started Al-Anon. And oh gosh, the first time I went there twice. The first time I went there, you're supposed to, Brent always does it his way, but you're supposed to get an appointment and show up. Well, I just showed up. I just show up. Yeah. And there's a housekeeper that lived in one of the houses, and she was just the kindest lady. And we went up there and told her, well, you're supposed to have an appointment. And I was like, well, yeah, I know. I don't follow the rules very well.
I'm a recovering alcoholic, so here I am. Let's do this.
So anyway, she hands us the keys to the house.
What?
To Bill and Lois's house. She goes, just go in there and enjoy yourself, look around. You can open up any books or read anything you want, and all this stuff. Wow. And she goes, I'll give you you're going to need a couple hours, she said. So you just go do your thing and then come back and I'll check in with you. And we went over there, and oh my gosh, it was like they had gone to the grocery store. Like there'd be a book sitting on the coffee table, and you pick it up, and all these handwritten notes in it, from Bill. And upstairs was a library, and he had pictures all over this library of all these famous people that he'd taken pictures from. I mean, presidents. Like, it had one picture with Lois sitting on a motorcycle with the Hells Angels. I mean, it was like the people that they knew were just incredible.
Yeah.
And all of their writings and things. And then she comes back over, and she starts telling us a lot of personal stories that people don't know about Bill. like he had this weird thing next to the fireplace. It went up and it looked like a flower. It was about 6 foot tall and kind of spread out, the flower, and it was next to the fireplace. And I'm looking at it like, what the hell is that? It goes, oh, Bill loved to play jokes on people. Well, he would put like, I don't know, some kind of gas inside this thing, and then he would light it on fire, and this flower would like shoot a flame out like 5 feet into the room. He got the biggest kick out of doing shit like that, you know. It's just like, and I realized I had Bill on this pedestal when I got there, that he was some kind of god.
Sure.
And when I left, I felt like he was just a drunk, just like me. He was just another guy, he's just crazy. But she took us over to the other house and she pulled out some of the archives and she showed us it was the very, very first big book ever printed. And they had presented it to Lois. They gave it to Lois. And Lois had they gave it to us. We could read it. She had all these notes, and then she had a key because there's stories in the back of the book. And so she had this key that she had set up, all numbered and everything. Kind of a cool way to set it up is which ones got sober, stayed sober, which ones struggled, went back out, which ones left and never came back. And it was just incredible, all these personal notes.
Wow.
And then she brought out these 3 pages out of a folder, that handwritten note from Bill, and it was when he was drinking. And it was like, I don't know, November 1st. And he writes this beautiful letter to Lois. I know, Lois, I did it again. I got drunk. I made a fool out of myself. I just want to tell you how much I love you, and I apologize. And he really had a way with words. He just went on and on and on. And you could feel that it was heartfelt. He meant everything that he said.
Yeah.
Then a month later, December 1st, here's another letter. Same thing. Lois, I screwed up again. I did this, and I'm so apologetic, and I don't know how to make it up to you, blah, blah, blah. The third letter, she had it in a piece of vinyl or whatever, and it started out the same way. Dear Lois, and it went about 2 lines, and literally the pencil fell off the page. Fell right off the page.
Oh.
And he had tore it up and threw it on the ground, and she taped it back together and kept it.
Wow.
And he was just drunk and fell right off and the pencil went right off the page. It literally fell off. It was so incredible.
Wow.
So, 99.9% of the people in Alcoholics Anonymous will never see that.
Yeah.
Will never get the opportunity. She showed us things that are not meant for the public, they're archives, and now it's called Stepping Stones, and it's a big foundation. And last time I went there was, 50 people in the house at the same time, and it just didn't have the same feeling. It was really cool. I really, really liked it, but to be there by myself and to read, Lois's Bible. There in a lot of the writings, you hear about Lois's Bible, and got to hold Lois's Bible. It was just amazing. It was really incredible.
That's so cool.
Some of the things that I've done, went there with Elaine and a good friend of mine, John from New York. Yeah, it was
awesome.
Great, great, great experience. Lots of fun.